Welcome to another workshop offered by the University of Kentucky and the Office of Work, Life, and Benefits. Today, we're going to be talking about preparing for kindergarten. We know that this is a big deal for parents, especially if it's your first child, even if it's your second child and it's been a while. So, we are really happy to offer this workshop to offer you some tips and suggestions for successfully transitioning into kindergarten. And so today we have some representatives from KinderCare's Woodland Early Learning Center with us. We have the director, Christine Jackson, and the associate director, Meghan Owens. And we also have one of our Working Parents Network leadership team members, Franny Henkel, and she also works here at the university as a student immigration specialist. And I'm Azetta Beatty. I'm the HR manager in Work Life and Benefits. All right. So we want to kind of kick off this with this little poem because, first of all, it's super cute. Kindergarten, I see my teacher, I see my room, I see a spot for me and you. I see my crayons, I see my glue. I see my pencil and scissors too. I see books and I see blocks. I know kindergarten is going to rock. That's a cute little poem. It's super cute. And it really makes us think about how when a child goes into kindergarten, there is a lot to see. The room is new, the teacher is new, the students are new, like everything, there's a lot to see, and it can be a lot to get used to. So, we are happy to offer this workshop today just to give you some things to help you, the parent, and also help you help your child to make that transition successfully. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about some steps to sign up for being a student in Fayette County in particular, but I also encourage you if you're not in Fayette County public school systems, maybe you're in a private school or one of the surrounding counties, just know that a lot of the tips that we offer are going to be general enough that you can apply them to your particular area. And definitely make sure you check out your particular district's website or the school that you are going to be attending to make sure you know what their particular processes are and their paperwork and documentation are as well. So we'll be talking through paperwork and documents and kind of the checklist, things to make sure you're collecting when you're getting ready to register, and then some helpful resources. We're going to talk about beyond the ABCs, what should my child know getting ready to go into kindergarten, and then advice from one of our UK, this is Franny Henkel. She's going to talk about just advice. What should you know? What should you do? What should you anticipate? And then things that you don't know to anticipate. So she's going to talk to us about that. And then talking about parent readiness. Parents, what do you do to get ready? Like there is a part of you, like mentally, emotionally, that has to get ready for this, just like you're getting those supplies. And then, first day of school tips. What should you do? What should you anticipate? And then some tips for being successful throughout the school year. And then, of course, talk a little bit as a reminder about the parent resources that we offer here at the University of Kentucky. So, when you're getting ready to sign up for kindergarten, first of all, you want to get necessary certain paperworks and different things, documentations you want to collect. There may be an online registration depending on the school system that you are entering. There may be a kindergarten registration as well as like a overall school system registration documentation and process. So you just want to kind of look into that. And if there is an online form, go ahead and complete that. And if there's options to attach certain documentations, go ahead and attach that. You may have to go to the school to drop off some things, some paperwork and some documentation. So just kind of check that very specific process and checklist of what you need. It also might vary. There's some things that are common, such that we'll talk about on the next slide, but then also there may be some additional documentation that that particular school asks you to supply. And so this slide here is just kind of reminding us that a birth certificate is pretty common. Some type of medical equipment sometimes is common. And so if we can mute, that'd be great. Thank you. And so we do have the kindergarten registration that is ongoing right now in Fayette County, and some of the surrounding counties are in the process or have started theirs as well. And although this month is a time to register for kindergarten, you can still do it outside of this month. So you may be still collecting some paperwork. You may still have some doctor's appointments that you're working on, but you can get started with that process. And if there are certain things that you still need to turn in later, the schools will let you know what the deadlines are for those things. So this lists some things that typically are asked for, like that birth certificate, proof of residence, immunization, a health exam from a recent health exam, a dental exam, eye exam, and those are pretty common things. And then this slide is just showing some helpful resources depending on what your child's plan is for like getting to school. If you're dropping them off, they're riding the bus. So this some links here talking about the bus and special education and non-traditional instruction, homeschooling, various language services, attendance policies, and school directories and so forth. So if you need some of that information, there's some links here to help you with that. And I absolutely encourage you to go to your particular school's website to get this information because sometimes this changes and the school, you can also call them to get this information. So don't be shy about calling the school or stopping by the school during their school hours and asking questions and getting the information that you need to make sure that you have everything you need to start this process and to be successful. Now we're going to go on to hear from our representatives from KinderCare in the Woodland Early Learning Center.
Good afternoon. My name is Christine. I am the Center Director at Woodland Early Learning Center, and I appreciate being able to have a few minutes this morning to chat with you all about beyond the ABCs. We often think about kindergarten readiness as far as what kids need to know, but there also are other steps that we need to take to prepare the kids for kindergarten so that we have the least amount of anxiety for you as a parent and for the kiddos. So first thing is answering the mystery of what is kindergarten. From a 4 or 5 year old's perspective, what kindergarten is might be scary or just a huge mystery. So taking the steps to make sure that the kids understand what to expect in kindergarten, how things will change, but how they will also stay the same. A huge part of getting kids ready could be ordering books that talk about kindergarten, making sure that you are reaching out to the school that your child will transition to. A lot of kindergarten programs have what they call Ignite Weeks or transition weeks that help them prepare for that upcoming transition. During that week, they'll go over schedules and routines. So that's also a great resource to make sure that you're taking advantage of to prepare the kiddos for school. Also, it could be a great idea to visit the school multiple times, even when they're not having programs. You could walk around the school so that the kids get familiar with the building. A lot of schools have open playgrounds that you could visit as well, just so that they can get acclimated to the idea of transitioning to a different program. Another huge key step is creating routines. So most kiddos go to a child care program where you don't have to have a hard drop off time as early as you do when you transition to a kindergarten program. So making sure that you are establishing those routines in advance. So adjusting bedtime so that the kiddos can get tons of rest in preparation for kindergarten is key. And then also planning for the mornings, with a structured start time, you definitely want to make sure that you have enough time in your morning routine where you don't feel rushed and your child doesn't feel rushed as well, just so that that's not creating additional anxiety. Um, and then again, just making sure that the kids know what to expect with that routine. So they know, every morning we wake up, we get dressed, we have a little breakfast at home, and then we go to school. That's key into helping to settle that anxiety. Another key thing to start working on is working on just following simple directions. Um, it's different at school than at home. So just making sure that the kiddos feel comfortable in separate spaces outside of you, to make sure that they know to follow directions. A lot of things that we do here at our center is we try to make fun learning. So it's sneak learning. We will practice a lot of games where the kids are working on impulse control and turn taking, following simple directions, things like that, so that they are working up to that bigger step of being in that role of being kindergartners, where they're expected to um, follow rules and directions from adults outside of their normal caregivers. And then a huge thing is helping the kids prepare with confidence to communicate their needs. A lot of times, again, if kids are with their trusted caregivers or with their parents, it's easier to communicate their needs. But if we're instilling in the kiddos that confidence to communicate their needs throughout the day, that will be helpful with that transition to kindergarten. There's a lot more going on in the elementary school as opposed to a childcare center or being at home with mom or dad. There's a lot more moving parts. There's a lot more kids. So we definitely want to make sure that they have the language and the confidence within themselves to be able to vocalize their needs, so that they don't feel like their needs are not being met throughout the day. Um, Also, something key that was kind of eye opening to me as a director a few years back, I had a really great pre K teacher that started just a self help skills workshop a few weeks before the kids went off to kindergarten. So they practiced a lot of similar routines that they do when they go off to kindergarten. They practiced a shortened lunchtime because, here they're able to eat as they want at their leisure. We don't have a strict amount of time that the kids have to eat. So if a kiddo is taking a little bit longer with lunch, that's totally fine. But the big difference is in elementary school, I believe they only have 23 minutes to eat. So that is considerably shorter than what they have here. So something that we try to do is to practice that, having the kids operate independently within a timer. Of course, if the kids need more time during that transition, we will offer that to them, but just getting them prepared for that mindset of, okay, I only have a short amount of time to eat lunch, so I definitely need to get in there and do what I need to do. Um, Another huge part with self-help skills for elementary prep, if you plan to pack your kiddos lunch, making sure that your little one has containers that they're able to open without assistance from adults. Of course, in the cafeteria, they're going to be helpers that are able to help the kiddos, but there are quite a few children that they are in charge of, so it might take some time to get to your child. So you definitely want to make sure that you set them up for success. But just have an easy containers that they can open, or at home you can practice opening containers as well. Also with self-help skills, making sure that when you dress your child, they are able to navigate their clothing independently. A lot of times the kids will go into the bathroom by themselves, so they need to be able to pull their clothing up and down as they use the bathroom, or when they go outside, they need to be able to take their coats on and off, be able to zip in them. That's something that we here at our center do try our best to focus on and help the kids with mastering those skills. But also, that is something great for parents to keep in mind as they are preparing for kindergarten, just making sure that they are working on those self help skills. And then, as far as regulating emotions, that's a huge thing for kiddos. We see that a lot of times here at our program where, kids feel big emotions, and that's totally normal part of the development that they experience at that age range, but we definitely want to equip them with the tools that they need to navigate those emotions. So being able to give them the language that they need to properly label those emotions, as well as tools to be able to calm themselves down or work through problems with their friends, also is very helpful in the kindergarten setting. Of course, they will still have adults there that help them navigate those issues, but it also is helpful to have those kiddos prepared to be able to speak for themselves or label their emotions or just calming things that they can do. Um, Here at our center, that also is another huge key component of our pre-K curriculum is different ways that the kids can calm themselves or take care of their emotional needs. So we'll have like calm down corners. We have special fidgets for the kids. We also have special books for the kids that they're able to reach to on their own so that they can help regulate those emotions. And then, of course, if they need the teachers, they can um, definitely come grab us, and we're happy to help them process those emotions. And then the last key component is just acknowledging the critical role that the parent plays in preparation for the kids, making sure that you are taking the steps ahead of time, well in advance, to help the kids feel prepared and confident in going to school. And then also just making sure that you're keeping a check on your emotions. Of course, if this is your first child, or even if it's not your first child going to kindergarten, there's a lot of emotions that you can feel as a parent, anxiety, fear. It's a lot. It's a huge change. There's a huge difference from bringing your child every day into the childcare center. You get to walk them to the classroom. When you switch to elementary school, I think for the first week they allow you to walk your child into the classroom, but from then on there, you're expected to drop them off at the door or at the car. So just making sure that you're taking a check of yourself. You don't want to show your child that you're experiencing these emotions, because then they can feed off of that. But also acknowledging that it's okay to feel those emotions and finding good ways to cope with them as well. Finding a buddy or friend that's going through the same thing could be very helpful, or chatting with your partner or your spouse could be very helpful too. And just taking the time to just be excited for this change, because I'm sure if your child's in childcare, that's nice to go away from that huge bill. But it also can be very anxiety filled too. So just allowing yourself to experience those emotions, but also just making sure that you're taking care to not push those emotions on your child. And then just finally just make sure that you're starting to prepare now. It sounds crazy. You still have a few months before that transition, but it's never too early to prepare, especially when you have this big change. Just having those simple conversations with your child, or preparing your emotions now too, is very helpful. So that's all I have.
Hi, everyone. My name is Meghan Owen, and I'm the Assistant Director at Woodland Early Learning Center. I am very glad to be able to take a few minutes to chat with you all this afternoon to break down a little bit about what, for instance, Fayette County Public Schools would be looking at and what they would be sort of hoping that your child might know upon entering into kindergarten. So there are specific things that we teach in preparing students for kindergarten. However, I went to specifically to the Fayette County Public Schools website, and they have an entire school readiness checklist. It does align very closely with the types of things that we teach the children in our program to get them prepared for kindergarten. So I'm just going to go over this readiness checklist. I believe that after the call, Azetta is going to do a follow-up email, and we will attach this checklist to the email so that everybody can have a chance to kind of look over it and read through it on your own. So there are 5 of what we refer to as developmental domains or areas that Fayette County Public Schools will be looking at when your child is entering into kindergarten. Those are general knowledge and mathematics, health and physical well-being, social and emotional development, language and communication, and self-help skills. It's important to remember that Fayette County Public Schools states that they recognize that children develop at different levels and that the only prerequisite for kindergarten is that a child be 5 years old on or before August 1st. So this readiness checklist, it can just be looked at as what the Fayette County Public School teachers might use in determining where your child is at developmentally so that they can better prepare for their school year. And it also can be looked at as a possible guide for what the teachers can use to help modify their lesson plans or curriculum to help meet your child where they are upon entering kindergarten. So I'm just going to take a few minutes to break down these different areas and what Fayette County Public Schools will be looking for. So the first area is general knowledge and mathematics. General knowledge helps students understand the world around them. General knowledge can include things like countries and leaders, the world around us, animals and plants, science basics, etc. Mathematics can help students count, measure, and solve problems. And it can include things like recognizing patterns, sorting, rote counting, etc. These concepts help develop logical thinking and problem-solving skills in children, and they build a strong foundation for higher learning. The next area is health and physical well-being. These concepts involve taking care of your body, mind, and feelings so that children and students can grow, learn, and play happily. This can include things like healthy eating, exercise and physical activity, rest and sleep, mental and emotional health, etc. Essentially, taking care of your body and mind every day helps students live a healthy and active life. And in addition, it is helping children build healthy habits early in life. The next area that is on the school readiness checklist has to do with social and emotional development. Social and emotional development has to do with understanding your feelings, controlling your behavior, and being able to control your behavior and get along well with others. This can include things like understanding your own emotions and others, managing feelings, communication skills, respect and empathy, sharing, building relationships, all of these types of things. Social and emotional development helps with self-regulation and creating responsible individuals. And I would go as far as to say that social and emotional development is probably going to be one of the number one things that is going to be important upon entering kindergarten. You know, we talk a lot about creating emotional intelligence in, early childhood education, at least, so that children are better able to self-regulate and navigate these big feelings that, we sometimes all feel. So I would say that that's probably one of the most important pieces that Fayette County will be looking at. The next area is language and communication. So these two concepts help children to express themselves clearly, understand others, and to learn effectively. These concepts can include things like listening skills, speaking skills, reading and writing skills, etc. These concepts help students grow into confident learners and clear communicators. And, so this builds language and communication can build a lot of confidence in our students as they are building those blocks for higher learning. And the last area that they are going to be looking at is self-help skills, which I know Christine already sort of touched on a little bit. But there are some self-help skills that they will be looking at. These are going to be the abilities that students use to take care of themselves and be more independent. They can include personal care. One of the big things that Fayette County will be looking for is children being able to use the toilet without any assistance from an adult. Dressing and eating independently will be looked at, problem solving, etc. So self-help skills help students become capable and confident. And again, they are building a well-rounded child that is building those blocks for success and higher learning. So kindergarten is going to be a place where your children and, the students will learn. They are not going to be expected to already know everything. So, any or all of these concepts on this checklist will help your child be successful in school, but no child is expected to have mastered all of these skills by the time they enter into kindergarten. So a lot of times, in our experience, curiosity and a willingness to try are more important than, being advanced or being ahead. So this is just a resource that will help you understand the concepts that Fayette County Public Schools will be looking at. And hopefully you can use it as a guide on your child's journey to and through kindergarten. And that's all I have.
All right. Well, I'll share a little bit of my perspective as a parent, and I'll probably echo a lot of the things that Christine and Megan already shared because they're absolutely spot on. But I'll just kind of share some perspective from my own family. I have twin boys who are now in second grade, but obviously entered kindergarten together. So we really had all of it coming at us at once. But that was kind of helpful for us to really dig in and figure it out. So I'll just go through a couple items that might be helpful as you're thinking about that transition for your children. Um, in terms of the academic preparation, I think Megan did a great job covering that readiness checklist. I would say probably your school will send that out over the summer. But thinking about it now is going to be really helpful because if there's really a piece of that your child isn't really working on yet, the summer is kind of too late to start building it up. So in order to have your child go in with as much confidence as possible, working on those things now is going to really help set them up for success. So again, the school is going to provide that, but you can always be working with your current childcare to build those up, and we're working on it as at home as well. I'd say don't be afraid to reach out to teachers too if you feel like your child needs some support in one of those areas. Depending on what your childcare situation is, if they're in a center or if they're in a home environment, there's probably a way that you can support them in that. Um, and then I will totally reiterate practicing eating lunch quickly. Those elementary school lunches are no joke, and kids are asked to do a lot really quickly. And it's just a very big change for a lot of kids. I know for my kids, it was a really big change. So we did practice in the summer with that kind of stuff. I would say if your school offers the orientation week or days prior to the school year, definitely take advantage of that. My kiddos went for mornings for the week before school started, and it was huge for them. It was great for them to be in the school environment with just other kindergartners, so there wasn't all the noise of those other grade levels. And the school was able then to have them get to know like the principals would come into their classroom and talk to them. And so they really got to know those people um, when they were focused just on their grade level. And I think that helped so much for them feeling comfortable in the school. So we were really glad to have had that opportunity and to have taken advantage of it. I think it really changed the way my kids thought about their place in the school. Because then once all the kids are in there, it's a really chaotic environment. But if they already feel like they're kind of grounded, that's really helpful. One thing that I always think about when I send, especially one of my kiddos who is such a rule follower and a little bit shy, is making sure that he's prepared to speak up for himself in a way that's respectful and productive, so that he feels comfortable. But in kindergarten, there's going to be much more structure, as we've already said. So things like bathroom breaks are going to be really built in. I have a kiddo who, if it's not the time that the teacher says you're allowed to go to the bathroom, is really hesitant to speak up. So, just thinking about what of those things think or be comfortable doing and talking to them about how to kind of break with routine when they need to, because we all know that the teachers absolutely want to help those students and want to support them, but kids sometimes feel like, oh, it's more important to follow the rule, or this wasn't a bathroom break, or they said that I couldn't talk right now, when it's like, well, if your stomach hurts, please tell them. And just making sure your kids know that there are going to be times when they can do things that are outside of that routine, and that the teacher will support them and not be maybe mad or frustrated. In terms of the big launch, day one, I'd say just take it slow. Make sure that you're, going through everything, you're listening to your kiddo, um, and really be ready for them not to make it through the whole week. So think about, if the first week of school is a full week, think, by Thursday, I'm going to need to have comfort food and an early bedtime ready. Know that it is a big, huge transition and they'll get through it, but they may not, make it through that first week as strong as they started. So be ready to support them, take it slow, pull back on things if you need to, even if they're coming home with homework right away, you can take a break sometimes if that's really what you need for your kiddo to have the momentum going forward. In terms of celebrating wins, for my family, it's been really important to recognize effort and think about wins in terms of effort, especially because we have twins. They are constantly comparing themselves to one another. And we've always been really focused on just sort of recognizing them for what they are doing and not necessarily what the other one's doing and one is not. So, that idea of catch them when they're being good, I use that a lot for, I really like how you kept trying at this, even if it's something that they're struggling with. So I think, recognizing that it's a big transition. And so recognizing where they are doing their best, even if they're struggling, that's going to help them recognize those things as a win and focus on the development instead of maybe each individual outcome. Because a lot of times kids are comparing themselves to one another. It's a different kind of environment. They're trying to figure out, where they belong and what they're doing and what they're, kind of known for. So giving them that confidence can be really helpful. Um, in terms of when things go wrong, that's going to happen for anyone. You may be in a situation where your kid's really struggling with something, or, maybe you feel like you're not in a good situation with how they're communicating with the teacher or other kids. But my recommendation is to start with talking to your child about what's going on. A lot of times I kind of jump to trying to problem solve and I forget to ask my kiddo what they think about it, how they view the problem, or what they think went wrong, or how they've already tried to start solving it. So I would say, it's really helpful to just start with your kiddo. And then you can get their perspective and then move forward with that. Teachers want to be on your team and they want to be on your child's team. Everybody's working toward a positive outcome for your child. But sometimes you're not all coming from the same perspective. So a lot of times when things go wrong, just stopping and listening can be a really helpful way, especially in kindergarten where so much is new for them. They're still figuring out how to communicate things that happened or how they feel about things, letting them kind of get that out and then working with the teacher to figure out solutions can be really helpful. What I wish I knew, I tell this to everyone, is that after school signups are so confusing. And it's different at every school. Some schools may be associated with like a YMCA. One school may have something that's in place at the school but is not run by the school. So if after school care is something that you need, I'd encourage you to find out now, if you haven't already, what the sign up process is, what the availability is, and start thinking about what your backup plans would be. A lot of those programs have really limited spaces. So at some schools, there's like an online sign up and you have to be in there as soon as it opens to get a spot. In some schools, you have to communicate with an individual who's the director for that program, but is not a school employee. So just find out what the process is at the school where your child's going and then figure out when you need to be doing what. If that's part of what you're looking for, if your school day for your child is going to include aftercare. It definitely did for my two, and I was trying to get 2 spots and it was tricky, but there are lots of options, but just know how to get through the ones that you want to, or get into the ones that you want to. I also asked my kiddos what they wish what they had known. And one of my boys said he wished he'd known that there wouldn't be any naps or snacks. So I think that really speaks to what a different kind of day kindergarten is from a daycare environment. and just thinking about, that a lot of their world is changing really quickly as they transition into that kindergarten life. For maintaining momentum, it's been really important for us to just kind of adjust as needed. So trying to find good routines, trying to make sure that we're prepared for the next day so that the mornings aren't a rush. Having a morning be a rush can sometimes just just kind of get off on the wrong foot. But if you have good routines in place, that can help you be more successful and your kids be more successful. I saw in the chat people are astonished that there is homework for kindergartners, and there are in some schools, kindergartners are coming home with homework. A lot of times it'll be like um, sitting and reading or maybe a worksheet, but finding a good routine for that as well will really help you kind of have a positive perspective on the school day. Using your resources. Schools have family resource centers, and in Sandersville, where my kids go, we have a phenomenal resource center that does programming for all different kinds of activities in the school. And so it really engages the whole school community. So I would encourage you to keep an eye out for things like that, ways that you can get to know other families, you can participate in activities, and just be in the school some as well. It is really different. And I think Christine mentioned this, that, drop off is going to be really different from a daycare environment. I find it's really helpful for me to look for opportunities to do things in the school because my kids are there so much and I really am not there. I drop them off. I don't go in any of those weekdays. So being able to be part of activities that are hosted by the school makes me feel more comfortable. It makes me, understand better about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And with that, I'd say get to know as many other parents as you can. I've been really fortunate to get to know and make friends with some other parents who also work at the school. And that's been a great way for me to get perspective on different things going on in the school, different programs they have. So just, be open to friendships in that way so that you can learn as much as you can. And then just also feel like you're on a team with those other parents. You are all going through it together, and it's a great resource. I think that's also really important for ongoing support for success. Friend groups with kids and parents are going to really help you feel like you have a sense of community in the school. Also looking to programming that happens outside the school, like in the library. Our public library system has so many great activities so that you're building up some of those skills that the kids are getting in the classroom, but also you can help them develop outside of the classroom as well in fun ways where they're engaged. And that can help you kind of learn what's going well for them, what they're struggling with, because you're going to see them applying those skills they're learning in the classroom in a different environment that you can kind of observe too. For my family, because we have twins, differentiation is huge. So if you have other children as well, maybe thinking about that of what each kid needs and what each kid is going to really thrive in this new environment. So for one of my kids, he needs practice in different social settings. And that's just been one of those growth opportunities for him for a long time. He loves being in school. He's going to follow all the directions, but he needs practice being in groups with other kids and gaining some of that confidence. Meanwhile, the other one really needs practice developing a routine reading, right? And he's going to go into social environments, just gangbusters, but he needs some of that other routine building too. So kind of thinking, I guess if you have an older kid, something might have been really easy for them, but that might be more of a challenge for a kid going into kindergarten, or the other way around. Like, don't assume that because one kid is having one experience that another one of your children will have the same experience. Just be ready to adjust as you go. But like everything with parenting, it's going to be different for each child, different for each family, and you know your child best. So, you're going to be able to read those cues and see what's going to be best for your family.
All right. Thank you so much. Wonderful, wonderful tips. Oh my goodness. Wonderful tips. Thank you so much. All right. So for our next few slides, we're just going to just cover a few additional things related to getting ready for kindergarten. And some of the things would have already been covered, so I'll be kind of moving through pretty quickly here. But thinking about a week or two out, maybe even before that, thinking about the appointments that you need to make, whether it be related to medical, like a dental or eye exam or whatever kind of appointments you might need to make. Making sure if you need to make a haircut appointment, checking their clothes. I love that idea of checking their clothing, checking their shoes, checking their supplies, things that you may not realize, oh my gosh, I need a new pair of shoes, or this jacket is a little too small. I mean, sometimes just things like that you don't think about. You just like, oh, you're thinking about paper and pencil and things like that. So, just thinking, checking the supplies and thinking about transportation because with the school system, if you plan to ride the bus, you do need to sign up to be a person on that bus. So, getting online and making sure you know what your bus routes are and where the bus is picking up and dropping off and or if you're walking, what are the walking routes? The start times for the buses when they're going to be there, the window of time, and all of that. So if that's part of your transportation, or even yourself, if you're going to be driving them to school, maybe just drive that route with the child, just so you get an idea. Like, okay, This is a different route for me. I'm going to drive that route. Just get used to that. So just kind of practicing certain things might be helpful. And then we've already talked a little bit about that, adjusting your clock yourself. Like you're going to be coming off of summer break, so sometimes summer schedule is a little different than regular school schedule. So going ahead and thinking about how do you need to adjust your schedule based on that. And are you going to pack lunch or not? Somebody asked in the chat, do they carry money for lunch? Lunch is paid for typically by an online system, so you, the parent, can load money onto that account, and that child will have a number. And when they go through the lunch line, they will say, "Here's my number," or they may scan something, and it'll just deduct from that account. If your child is in a school that has free for everyone, so some schools do have that free option, then they'll still go through and still sign in, but they won't pay anything. So even if you have a free option, sometimes the child might choose to get extra milk, and that they have to pay for that. So sometimes even if your school is everybody eats free, it's good to have some money on that account, even if it's just $20, because if your child decides to get an extra apple or extra pizza slice or anything like that, they have to pay for those things, and that has to come off of that account. So that's just something the school will help you, make sure you get checked in with all of that. And so just good, that's a really good question. All right. And this talks about kind of scheduling some play dates with other families that are starting kindergarten. Like if you know of other families that are starting your school or just in that age range, just getting your children together that could help them with that transition. Someone else that kind of understands where they are, what they're dealing with. This other slide here just talks about some more tips for the first day. So this talks about taking a first day picture the day before. I don't know about that one. You can do it if you want to. If it was me, I'd probably say this is the day before picture, and then here's the day of picture. But if you are going to do that, and a lot of parents do that for years, make sure you just allot extra time in your day to do those extra things on that first day. Because we do tend to have first day things things that you want to do. So taking those pictures just kind of give you some 15 extra minutes to take that picture and still get to the bus stop on time. Also, buses tend to run a little late on the first day. So if your child is getting on the bus the first day, if you're not taking them to school, just know that first week, even first several days, they are going to be, maybe running late, not the scheduled time. And then the same thing with coming home. That first day, that first few days, the buses are oftentimes behind schedule because they have to make sure all the children that's supposed to be on that bus are on that bus. And so as they get into that routine a few days in, they get into a rhythm and they're usually pretty close to that window of time you anticipate them. And also with kindergarten, I know in Fayette County and maybe other counties, an adult has to get the child off the bus. and it has to be someone that's registered to get the child off the bus. So you can have several people registered to get your child off the bus. So you just want to make sure that they are on the list and they're okay to get them. But if they are not there with ID, saying I am, even if that's every single day and it's day like 100, and they will still ask you for that ID. So just note that that is something to, if they're riding the bus, someone has to be there to get them off. And then other things to think about, just that first day preparation, planning if they're going to take lunch or not, if you're going to make breakfast or not. Just know it could be a little emotional. There could be, try not to rush as much as you can. So just having some time to do what you need to do to make those transitions can be super helpful. And they may need an extra hug, an extra kiss, just an extra snuggle or extra words of encouragement, just knowing that that's okay. And if a little meltdown or something comes up, especially if they come home and they didn't have a good day, just be prepared. What kind of special thing could you do? Planning for that day, that first day, or that first few days when they come home, and just be ready to encourage them. This point here talks about skipping the first day of school teacher gift. You can or cannot. You can choose if you want to do that or not. The main point here is just that there's so much happening on the first day. In fact, there's so much happening the first several days of school that it can kind of get lost in the shuffle a little bit. So you may just wait a little bit to the next week or two and give them a gift if you plan to do that. That is not required. And also, if you want to write your teacher a note, just saying, thank you for teaching my child this year, and anything that you want them to know about your child, you can do that maybe within a few days or so. So that's just something to think about. Considering sleep routines is also really important. You might want to kind of move the bedtime up a little bit that first week because your child will be doing, again, their routine is going to be different. They're going to be doing a lot of things in fast pace, maybe in different, the schedule is different. And so they may be worn out that first week or so, or they may be wired, like excited. So just kind of think about what do you need to do to help them ease into the bedtime. If it's reading, if it's listening to music, sounds, whatever it is, just, giving some extra time for that. And so those are some things to think about. And also, when you think about prepping the day before, again, of course, packing any lunches and asking them, are there certain, if you're doing a lunch packing option, what kinds of things would they want? And make sure that you have those things, those types of snacks ready for them. Getting those clothing ready, what outfits do they want to wear? Make sure you have that ready to go. And like I talked about, the making sure whether it's shoes or socks or all the supplies, they have all of those things. And packing, I always recommend trying to do as much as you can the night before, like forever, for years and years. Try to get them into that routine of, making sure everything, the homework is in the back, it's in the folders in the backpack the night before. The Chromebook is in the backpack, now you may be charging that one, so that one may have to wait. But it's a good idea to charge that Chromebook overnight, make sure it's plugged in before they go to bed. And so most students have a Chromebook, or they have, if they have a Chromebook that they take home. So that's something to think about. And put things at the door or some spot where this is the spot where we leave our items that we're taking, out with us, because they're less likely to forget it. That's just a good habit and routine to get into. All right. And then morning routines, back to that routine. Be as consistent as possible. And then your child will be different. Everyone, you'll know your child's personality. Some children are, if you get out of the routine, that throws them off. Some children, they're very go with the flow, or maybe you need a routine. But either way, for the sanctity of the family, for the family's sake, is a good idea to have a routine. Because if you have different people moving about in the home and all on these different schedules, it's good to have some sort of routine to help with that. And then making sure they know what's included, what things are expected. Like for my high schooler now, he's still on a routine, and he has to have everything done by a certain time before he leaves in the morning. And that helps him even now as a high schooler. So just to stay on task and make sure your day is off to a good start. So visual schedules might be helpful for your child. Maybe a picture of like brushing your teeth, maybe like check mark or a star, or there, you can determine what works best for you as you kind of start this process. This is just some reminder about how important it is to do some things that will help your child be successful throughout the year and help your family, like in the flow of everything, be successful. And so this just reminds us to, make sure you get a good night's sleep, have a good breakfast, good lunch, know what's going on at the school. So the schools oftentimes will have ways that you can sign up within the classroom and sometimes within the school, different apps like Remind or GroupMe or what have you, different options to sign up to make sure different announcements get to you. Sometimes they'll have the folder system where they put things in the child's folder and you're supposed to check the folder every night to see if they sent any kind of announcement to you. But now I know a lot of schools have like online parent connect types of systems where they just email it directly to you or text it directly to you. So making sure you're signed up for those things. And if your phone number changes, anything changes that you email changes, that you make sure you update that information. And this just reminds us that it's super important to also continue to have fun. We're talking about all of these things, we're thinking about the supplies and all of that, but still have fun. So make sure you build in some fun time, with your child, with your family, with some friends, some neighbors, what have you, and just do some fun things. And there's still some wonderful resources outside of the school that you can also participate in, such as doing things at the library or going to the parks and so forth. So just kind of keeping in mind those things. And then, of course, once they're in school, you also are thinking about the germ factor. So they were in the maybe potentially in the home or child care center, and you still were thinking about that. But now they're in even bigger setting and they're going to even more spaces. So making sure that you are on the lookout for, if they're sick or if someone's in their classroom is sick, oftentimes the teacher or somebody will send a note out about that, but sometimes they don't know. So just, being mindful and watching out for keeping them out of school if you discover that they are sick so that they don't go and get other people sick in school. And so we do have some resources for all of the working parents at the university through the Working Parents Network and through Work Life and Benefits. And we have some great resources on our website, depending on where you are as a parent. If you are new to sending your child to school or you've done this multiple times, we have lots of great resources and workshops and support groups and all kinds of things that I will include in the follow-up. So we definitely want to end with this poem and thank you guys for attending. And I think we have a couple of questions in the chat we want to grab as well. So this poem says, First day at school. I wonder if my drawing will be as good as theirs. I wonder if they'll like me or just be full of stares. I wonder if my teacher will look like mom or gran. I wonder if my puppy will wonder where I am. So this is a cute little poem, and it's just puts us in the mind that there's a lot happening, and the child might be thinking some things that they are not sharing with you. So it might be good to ask some good questions and just be observant of how they're behaving and how they're acting, or what they're saying or what they're not saying. Their verbals, their nonverbals, just watching to see how things are going, and not just for the first day, throughout the entire year. So we do thank you guys for attending this session with us. We thank you for your participation, and we look forward to taking your questions and seeing you at upcoming workshops as well.